10 years ago, almost at this time, in about, I don't know, an hour, not even, I would have gotten the news from my daughter that my son had died. It's something you never forget. It's like the birth of your child, you never forget. And I'm a person that plays on numbers. The 16th, the 1 and the 6. The 2014 is the year. The day of his birth and what those numbers are. And I simulate all of them. And I remember the 444 that I seen on the clock, the digital clock, every morning I woke up. And I had just had knee replacement a few weeks prior. My daughter had had surgery on her stomach. And I dropped, I guess. When I got the news, the rush of it to my system and the shock, I just dropped. And my daughter's surgery was compromised, I believe, because she tried to hold me up. And everything after that just feels like a fog. I really don't remember. I don't even remember months after that. I know what pictures say. I know what people have told me has happened in the pictures. But the actual act, they said I made Thanksgiving dinner. I don't remember it. They said I made Christmas dinner. I don't remember it. I was present in my day and people saw that, but I have no recollection of it. There's many ways to have trauma affect you in your life from the outside in. That would be one of mine. The other major one was, I believe, when my daughter had spinal meningitis. The fear of what that was, because it was prevalent in our area that people had children that had that, and the things that had happened to those children. We had a big fear when my daughter had gotten it. Then my brother, when he was burned in a house fire in 1975. He had just passed away now recently in the last 2 years. My baby brother passed away this year. I believe his daughters are going through a lot. I believe one daughter is really sabotaging herself from the 10-year-ago death of my son, and maybe any other trauma she might have had that I'm unaware of. But I think it's affected all of us in very unique ways to ourselves. People don't talk about trauma. My brother only recently, in the last, he was here, he died 2 years ago in June. It'll be 3 years, but he was with me living at the time. And he had held me. He gave me a hug and he said, I really didn't know what to say to you. And that's why I didn't say anything at all. And when somebody has a loss, any loss, to just approach them and let them know that you're there. They may not remember it, but somebody may tell them that they were there. But to reach out and not just reaching out is enough. To know that you're not alone in what you're going through is enough. That's the biggest part, is to know you're not going through something alone. It can, but it doesn't have to destroy your life. And it absolutely can. And the ones I find to be the worst loss of a child is where you don't have any other children or any grandchildren. I thought that would be the worst, to have it be your only child. I don't think that's true. I think it's true for any child. If you have 20 children, to lose one is horrific, whether you have 19 at home or not. And it's just very difficult to lose the what I call the world order of the way life is lived. We are to die before our children. Our children are to outlive us, and the world order of the grand scheme of things and how it's done. They are to carry the torch after we're gone. So now what happens? What happens? Everything that we created is gone. They're no longer here. There's one. I may think, well, I know mine is terrible for me. Just for me. I'm not talking about anybody else. I know it's terrible for my daughter for all her reasons. But I think about my son's father. He didn't only lose our son, he got married and had another son, and he died recently, the same year as my brother, just weeks apart. His two sons had died from two different relationships. He's comforting that wife that lost her child, and now he has somebody to cook. That misery needs company. Well, he definitely got some company in that one. So now she can understand what he was been going through, possibly with the first step, where she couldn't relate to it. Now she can. And sadly, it's an awful way to have to learn to relate to something and understand what your husband's going through by having to go through what you're going through. There's something that a friend of mine said, that there's always somebody worse off in life than you are. I don't like to think of anybody being worse off. Um, so it's different for me. And that's something that's unique to each of us. We're all different in how we perceive things. We're going to see and feel things differently. Something is going to take us on a walk that will give us a reflection of something different, and we'll be able to perceive it differently. Better, maybe, worse. We may be able to share it and convey it, but not understand it because it wasn't gifted to us in that way. Where it was the aha epiphany. I just think of my son always softly, tenderly. I no longer have thought in where he would be, what he would be doing. I used to like to hear what all of his friends were doing, how they were. And I thought it helped me to watch their families grow and do things like that. And I believe it did. But something shifted in me. I don't know if it was my age or my life, where it took me. I no longer needed that any longer. I think I had gotten acceptance in my son's death. It feels like you're supposed to fight it forever. I don't think so. You have to have some kind of acceptance that it is what it is. And you're never going to change that. You're going to have to learn to live around it, with it. 10 years still feels like it could have been just this morning. It is a crisp morning, but there's no ice and snow on the road like it was that morning. I'm sure his sister's thinking about him. I don't know about his nephew and niece, my grandchildren. I know they miss him. A lot of things have been altered in my grandson's life because of it. Uh, I think when you're a manly man and you work in the elements of the weather and your your skin is toughened because you're out in the elements of the weather working. It's a different kind of a work zone where you're working with mechanicals of tools and machinery outside, like running tractors and dozers and skidders and equipment, and having to learn the oils and the gases and the diesels and the sharpening a chainsaw and all the things that go with it and the safety precautions. Where my grandson's father is, I would call it a white collar worker. If you talk about the collar of a blue collar worker, um, it's still work. It's just a different kind of work. And I think my grandson would have benefited from that. Maybe being able to go out and do those kind of things and just see what it's about. He might not have ever been a child that wanted to grow up to aspire to be that hardworking person. I'm pretty sure my son would have said, "Don't work hard with your back. Work hard with your mind," because his back hurt. I mean, he was, yeah, he had hurt his back and he'd been hit with a log in the back of the head. So he had some things that happened. He had many concussions playing football in high school. But he did his best and he gave us 33 years. I'm grateful for those 33 years. I wish there were more. Of course I do. But wishing in one hand and pooping in the other, which one fills up first? I'd rather just make sure I stay embracing that I'm grateful. I want to stay grateful and I don't want to be resentful. Resentful won't get me anywhere, and I've been resentful before. I know what that's like. That'll age you faster than anything. You'll age really fast with resentment. Don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to the people you care about because they see you, they hear you, and you're not the same person with resentment. You're just not. And you're not a very good person either. I'm pretty sure. Because I don't think I was at the time I was doing it. Just saying. So, to the end of the beginning of a change of a life, 10 years later.